following yesterday, down over there, and found that before it dug into the log, it came out of this brush here, where it had been walking around and knocking over plants. Found a really interesting track here, which I'm going to zoom in on and show you that if you pull back some of this vegetation, you can see what animal made this track. Because way down here, there's an impression from the outer edge of his foot, the foot pad. Look at that. You can see it pretty clearly right there, the edge of the pad of a bear's foot. A black bear was in here. So all this trampled vegetation was trampled by the bear. We're following his path here. Here's another good compression where you can actually get some shape of his track. Sometimes if you feel them, you can feel the depression of the track. Right there by that log as well. So this is a pretty interesting trail in here. Still on the trail of the bear here. Notice that these leaves here are darker in color than the other leaves on this plant because they've been stepped on by a heavy animal, the bear. This one as well shows some damage from having been stepped on. There's some bruising on these leaves below it. And you can see bruising on the leaves way down here, closer to the ground. All that bruising because the heavy animal put his big foot here. So you can tell a bear stepped right there. And a broken stem on that plant there. So there's a lot of sign in here that tells you this was where his foot fell. Here's something else kind of interesting on the bear's trail. Notice the stem of this foxglove plant here shows some rubbing marks. There's some more down here where this fuzz on the plant has been rubbed right off. The bear walked over this. You can see his tracks on both sides, straddled it, and knocked it over with its belly as it walked through. It's called straddle marking. And there's signs of it on this plant here, which normally stands straight up like this. Interesting sign. Still more signs here on this bear's trail. And I'm not sure if the bear did this or not. Somebody nipped off the ends of all of this thistle. This is not a native plant here. It's a bull thistle. Ouch. And it has very prickly leaves. But some parts were actually dropped down onto the ground, but others are missing. I don't know if bears eat this. It's right here on its trail, so I'm assuming the bear ate it, but it doesn't look very tasty to me. As we follow this bear's trail through here, we also find yet another foxglove that got knocked over. And this one here as well, where the bear straddled it and walked over it and knocked it down. Normally these plants stand up straight like those over there. So for some reason the bear actually knocked this foxglove over. Interesting. Here's some more knocked over grass, knocked over in the direction of travel. We're still following a black bear. And the interesting thing here is, first of all, it stepped on poison oak, which is wonderful. Thank you, bear. Second of all, notice how it stopped here. You can see where its feet rested. And it actually did nibble on this bull thistle plant, which is so prickly, I can't see why they would think of it as a food source. But then again, they eat berries in the summer. And the berry vines have very sharp spines also. And the bears rip the berries off without apparently being bothered by the spines. So it looks like one of their early spring food sources may be bull thistle. Pretty cool. Here's another really nice bear track in forest debris here. Notice how the plants here have been squashed down And there's an overall flattened area here. These plants have been carried forward. They stick to you. They're called cleavers. And so it stuck to the bear's foot and was carried forward and trampled into the track here. There's some pine needles in here that show some bends in them from the weight of the bear. And this vegetation has been mashed and bruised. So now we get into some more interesting tracking. So we're going to follow signs like this. And this. But then we're getting into pine needles. Real fun stuff. This ought to be interesting. Okay, tracking the bear here in the pine needles, you can still sort of rely on the plants if the bear happened to step on some and flip their leaves over to the wrong side or bruise the leaves. But you can also look for things like this, broken twigs, or twigs that have been stepped on where bark has been removed where the bear stepped. Notice that this stuff springs back right away. So it is difficult to track in this stuff, but it can be done. You come up here and you find a fresh break on a branch. You just have to kind of learn the colors of the branches. So we're following the bear through the pine needles. At this point, the bear's trail seems to be going through this little cut right here, and I happen to know that on the other side of that is a sludge burial area. So I'm not going to go in there. I think this is where I will leave the bear trail, because I'm not interested in wading through sludge. But it's been an interesting track. Bears are pretty fun to track in spring. See you on the trails.